Comment alert. On the north side of the dirt, it is your man D-Real coming at you with another Be Real with D-Real, where edutainment is what I do. I want to talk to you a little bit about characterization. Characters in comics and or novels that are brought to the big screen. What gets gained, what gets lost, and why? And I'm going to use a character that is an amazing, fantastic, wonderful character to illustrate this point, but flopped so amazingly in the cinema, John Carter. Okay? But before we get off into that, I need y'all to do what you always do for your mans and them. Comment, like, subscribe, and share the Be Real with D-Real page so that when the material comes out, you get it. If you're digging with a brother shoveling, put some dirt in my bucket. Comment, like, subscribe, and share. All this right here. All right. Characterization. Here we go.
What happened to this place?
Now, what makes a character good? What makes a character meh? You know what I mean? Is it how the director or the writer imagines it? Or is it that no matter what happens, a character is just going to suck butts no matter what you do? And John Carter, as you can see, as you look, you know what I'm saying, the special effects weren't off. The action wasn't off. So, I mean, what was it that made this movie not good? Was it the character? I wouldn't say it was the character. I wouldn't say it was the character at all. I would say it was a combination of things. I would say it was not so great attention to, I guess, what the fans wanted. And in this John Carter movie, they combined elements of the first 3 movies into that one movie. If there were plans to do 2 more sequels, why would you take elements of Gods of Mars and Warlord of Mars and put it in what is effectively a Princess of Mars, which is the first ever novel written by Edgar Rice Burroughs all the way back in 1911. Lush story. I mean, there are 7 major novels that Edgar Rice Burroughs himself, 10 that Edgar Rice Burroughs wrote. I'm sorry. So the more popular of those being, of course, A Princess of Mars, is which this movie's based on, Gods of Mars, Warlord of Mars, and then there is Thuvia, Maid of Mars, Chessmen of Mars, Mastermind of Mars, and Fighting Man of Mars, all written by Edgar Rice Burroughs. Now, it's a good story. How do we know it's good? Because it became a comic book in the early 70s, DC Comics. And it was so good. How good was it, D? Marvel Comics picked it up a couple of years later. And there was a John Carter Warlord of Mars comic book that ran in Marvel for a number of years. Was it still good after that movie flopped? Yep, because Dynamite Press picked it up and they have a whole family of John Carter comics. It ain't just John Carter. Deja Thoris, his wife, has her own comic. Thuvia, Maid of Mars, has her own comic. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there is a Thark comic book. The Tharks are the big giant green guys with 4 arms. So if you got all of this material on John Carter out there, what happened? I mean, even before John Carter, there was the horrible Princess of Mars with Antonio Sabato Jr. and former porn star Tracy Lords. Yeah, not not as hot a Deja Thoris as Lynn Collins. She actually looked. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop. Um, so we know there were plans for a sequel. What happened to the sequel? Well, I'll tell you what happened to the sequel. John Carter had a $307 million budget and only grossed 281 million. That's like Waterworld numbers, y'all. It didn't do so well. Was it because of the characterization? No, I don't think it was because of the characterization, but there could have been something that lacked in the characterization. My man Dre Mack, who I rocks with, the Dre Mack Show, he recently had a short where he talked about iterations of characters and the translation from comics to a cinematic version. A bunch is going to be lost in translation. A bunch is going to be lost in translation. But those core values, those core characteristics that are intrinsic to that character should exist regardless of who that character is. My case in point, Superman, right? Superman. No matter if he's written by Grant Morrison, Mark Waid, freaking Peter Tomasi, or Siegel and Schuster, there are qualities that are intrinsic to Superman. Otherwise, it ain't gonna be Superman. His name is always gonna be Clark Kent. Don't care what iteration is it. He's always going to be from Krypton. If we're talking about Kal-El, always going to be from Krypton, no matter what iteration it is. And he's always going to have Lois Lane by his side, whether it's his girlfriend, whether they're married, whatever. If you do a Superman movie and you don't have those elements, I would venture to say it isn't going to be well received. That's an opinion, not a fact. I would venture to say it's not going to be well received because everybody knows, everybody who's a fan knows Superman from Krypton. Everybody who's a fan of Superman knows his name is Clark Kent, mild-mannered reporter for the Daily Planet, blah, blah, blah. Everybody knows these things. So when we go, let's call Clark Kent George Smith. Let's say he's from the planet Rimbor this time. And he married Lana Lang. So Lana Lang is his girl. I get it. I know a lot of y'all like, oh, it's going to be Lois Lane, huh? Okay, what about Smallville? What about the later seasons? Eventually, they got Lois Lane in there. I mean, I liked the dynamic between him and Lana, but that went on in Smallville. If we're going to do a whole story about Smallville, yes, Lana Lang is intrinsic to that story because that was his sweetheart in Smallville. But when he got to Metropolis, he started digging on a different chick. And that's the one we know better than the one he dated in Smallville. So when we say you're going to get a whole different character cinematically, you can, but you don't have to. And the reason I say that is because you can choose to adapt an entire storyline out of a comic book, but writers won't do that. They attempt to do it and fail. They fall on their face. There's no good reason why you couldn't effectively tell the story of the Dark Phoenix saga or the Phoenix saga. Why couldn't you tell that story? Because there was a lot of characterization left out of it. We never got Lilandra. We never got the Imperial Guard. We never got the Macron crystal. Those are key elements of that story. Let's just go Dark Phoenix. We're going to do some other stuff. That did turn out for you. Okay, now don't get me wrong. It's not a hit and miss thing. Sometimes you can have a fantastic movie and go off the reservation and make everything that doesn't have anything to do with comics work. Blade worked so well that the movie version became the comic version. If you got a version that's better than what we started out with, you got a better version than Marv Wolfman and Gene Colan made back in 73, I believe it was. Yeah, let's rock with that. If you can make a better Black Panther, I'm with it on the screen. If you can make it better, that's the goal. You want to exceed your expectations. You want to exceed what's laid out for you. I want to exceed everything that T'Challa did from 1966 on. If you can put that on the screen cinematically, encapsulate it, and make it work, sure. We grab elements, okay, out of a story. Key elements. As long as we have a couple key elements, it should work. What do we do with Black Panther? He was still Wakandan. He was still African. Check. There was still vibranium in the equation. So much so, they took vibranium and put it more into the equation than it was in the comics. That worked. Now, for the sequel, they played a little wild and loose, and it showed. So, I guess what I'm saying is, as my man Theo likes to say, two things can be true at the same time. You can make a great movie if you dwell exclusively in the source material. If you're a creative mind and you are a fan of the material that you're rocking with, I believe you can go off the reservation and make an equally entertaining flick. That isn't always the case, but like I said, there are those isolated moments where it can happen. The reason I use John Carter to illustrate that point is because there were plans to do 3 John Carter pictures. But because the first one underperformed, studio got a little squeamish, got a little scared. Nah, we ain't gonna do that. Did it fail because it wasn't a good movie? A lot of people talk about it. Go back and watch John Carter and tell me action-wise, that's not a good movie. Go back and watch John Carter and tell me the plot's off. What happened was people who really dig John Carter had issues with the movie. And I don't think it was just them that made the movie flop. I don't think people were properly introduced to John Carter. I don't know how that could have worked or how that should have worked, but it didn't fly the way it was supposed to. And because of it, fans of John Carter got shorted of an opportunity to finally see a character that they enjoyed reading about on the big screen. He didn't translate like Blade translated. They just took it and said, we're going to do this, and hopefully this works. If it doesn't work, Blade's a D-list character, and we ain't ever got to see that cat again. But it did work, and now Blade is pretty much a household name. Hell, Blade's an Avenger in comic book continuity. How interesting would that be to see cinematically? I get it. You're going to give me your cinematic version, but as long as your cinematic version is entertaining, cool. And if something is entertaining or not, ain't a fact. That's an opinion. So where one person might think Eternals was a cinematic masterpiece, another person might think it was trash. While one person might think Black Panther Wakanda Forever was a tour de force and an emotional roller coaster ride that they enjoyed going on, other people might be like, I ain't like it. Okay, it's all in the characterization. How were those characters characterized? Were they true to who they should have been? Or did we just say nobody knows these characters' personalities anyway, except the hardcore fans, and we don't really care what they think, so we can make the movie we wanted to make? Makes sense? Makes sense to me. Um, again, two things can be true at the same time. You can make a great movie based on characterization of the source material, or you can go off the reservation and make an equally entertaining movie. The problem I have currently with the MCU is that they ain't doing either. In my opinion, they aren't doing either. They aren't making engaging characters. They aren't drawing me in to where I want to watch these shows and be engaged in these shows. Moon Knight, not drawing me in. She-Hulk, not drawing me in. Loki, not drawing me in. What If drew me in, but it had some things going on that were interesting because it's What If, but that's supposed to be that way. That's what If is. That's what Elseworlds is. They're supposed to be variations on the theme. Okay, if they're variations on the theme, let me see the theme first. Show me what you're deviating from. Makes sense? Might not make sense. Drop it in the comments. And as always, I'll be coming at you with another one of them other ones. And until I do, y'all be good. Be good to each other.